go a little bit back on time. You mentioned it already, but I wanted to talk about that now. What do you recall of that night when you and Ivan won the NWA tag team titles from Dusty and Manny Fernandez in a packed stadium match at that moment?
Yeah, you know, one of the first milestones of my career, right? The world tag belts, and of course against the legendary American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, right, and the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez, and so certainly it became a catalyst for what was to come, where we'd eventually win the world six-man, or be, you know, have the world six-man titles, eventually wrestle Ric Flair for the world heavyweight title. And so certainly look back on that with fond memories, as it again further catapulted or launched my already meteoric career to further heights. And so nothing but great, and especially against the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, right? The legendary American Dream.
Perfect. Él gana los campeonatos en pareja junto a Ivan Koloff. Ellos se enfrentaron a Dusty Rhodes y American Dream, y a Manny Fernández. Ganan los títulos de NWA. Fue uno de sus milestones o de sus logros, al igual que muchas otras cosas. Obviamente una leyenda, como él dice, como Dusty Rhodes, simplemente un honor. Which actually you mentioned it, and that's actually my next topic. You faced none other than the Nature Boy Ric Flair in the main event of the Great American Bash in 1985, I believe, for the NWA World Championship. What do you recall of that historic night?
No pressure there. Kind of like my debut in Raleigh. You know, because keep in mind, so if your audience keeps this in mind, so the night I stepped into the ring against Ric Flair, I still at that point have only been in the wrestling business for 13 months. 13 months from the time I debuted in Raleigh. Fast forward just over a year, and now I'm wrestling for the world heavyweight title against, again, another legend of the wrestling business, right? Ric Flair. And he flies in on the helicopter. You know, there's 30, 35, 25,000, however many, a lot of people in the stadium. And I'm the main event. It was incredibly humbling to be in that position. And then to know I'm wrestling an icon like Ric Flair. And I look back on that, once again, another stepping stone that would lead to a banner career for me that I can look back on with incredible memories, including the Nature Boy Ric Flair.
Woo! Él se enfrentó al 16 veces campeón mundial Ric Flair. Eso fue en el año 1985, Great American Bash. Como él dice, no pressure, no hay presión. 13 meses después de haber debutado, cero experiencia. Ahora, ese muchachito que le dijeron, if you trip in the ropes, you're out, ya de momento va por un campeonato mundial peso completo, main event. Ric Flair baja en ese helicóptero y la cabeza le estalla a cualquiera estando en algo tan enorme como eso. Una experiencia, como él dice, humbling, que lo volvió humilde y le dio la oportunidad a él de crecer todavía más a otro nivel. There's actually a particular storyline or rivalry that many people remember, especially my dad. And I'm talking about the one with Magnum TA. There was, I believe, the best of 7 match for the NWA United States Championship, which actually took you to a whole new level against him. What do you recall of working with Magnum?
And that's probably the number one thing when I go out and do autograph signings and I go out and make special appearances now. Probably the number one most, or other interviews, the number one most mentioned thing is the best of 7 series against Magnum TA. Our styles really lined up real well, which is why I think led to such in the chemistry that we had wrestling one another, which is why the fans remember that so well. And the way we told the story, where I went up 1-0, 2-0, 3-0. He fights back 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, leading into that 7th and final match. And so what an incredible memory. Magnum and I are to this day are good friends to this day. and talk quite often. And sometimes we will reflect on those matches, sometimes for the fans, sometimes just talking with each other, you know, as people post things on social media, etc. So, well, what a history-making series. And you know who gets credit for all that? I want to make sure and mention, once again, the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. That was his brainchild, his idea.
I'll translate this. Lo más recordado por los fanáticos o en apariciones especiales o en meet and greets o en virtual o en las firmas de autógrafos que él va, todo el mundo le habla de ese Best of Seven, Magnum TA contra Nikita Koloff, el ruso, el estadounidense, el campeonato de Estados Unidos de por medio de juego. Y esa fue esa emoción de que de momento 3-0 y de momento 3, y ya estaba 3-3. Toca el momento de desempatar con la séptima lucha, algo sumamente increíble. Y él dice: quiero darle, todavía lo recordamos a veces para los fanáticos, hay veces que alguien pone un post o a veces ponemos a hablarnos entre nosotros. Son muy buenos amigos entre ellos, Magnum TA y Nikita Koloff. Pero él dice: quiero darle crédito siempre a Dusty Rhodes. Eso fue su brainchild, como dice. O sea, nació de su mente esa idea que catapultó sus carreras a otro nivel. I've read some reports that are conflicting. Some said another thing and the other one said something completely different. I want to just clarify the record. As far as we know, you were originally scheduled to actually win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship on 1986 against Ric Flair, but Dusty decided it was not the moment, or it was simply it was not the moment or something. It didn't happen. Was this actually true? Were you originally scheduled to win the title from Flair?
Well, in '86, so I was kind of if you want to say thrown into that match because of Magnum's accident.
Oh yeah.
So '86 is when Magnum had the wreck and the accident. It's quite interesting. Had Magnum, you know, it's one of those what ifs. If he had never had the accident, he actually was just days away from locking in the deal. He had already been approved to become the next heavyweight champion. So he was days away from that when he had the accident. So, and of course, you know, we were at the height of our, you know, of our rivalry, especially with the U.S. title. Had he never had the accident, I may never have become a fan favorite. I may never have become a good guy, or of course, you say a baby face. We'll never know, because most likely he would have got the world title, and then he and I, just like with who knows, there might have been a best of 7 for the world heavyweight title. Right? I mean, that would have made revenue. That would have been I think a sellout everywhere we went. All that said, I was put into the match, but I never officially had any conversations about taking the title from Rick that night. Perhaps Dusty and Jim Crockett were maybe talking about that. However, they never really discussed that with me, if there was conversations about that.
Perfect, I'll translate this. Cuando él estaba pautado a enfrentarse a Flair, fue porque Magnum TA, recordamos, tuvo un accidente y quedó fuera de la ecuación. Magnum estaba así, a días de convertirse en el campeón mundial, y lamentablemente pues ocurre eso. Él dice como que pues los what if de la vida, o sea, a lo mejor Magnum hubiese ganado el título en aquel momento, hubiésemos tenido tal vez un Best of 7 por el campeonato de NWA World Heavyweight en aquel momento, entre Nikita Koloff y entre Magnum TA, y él dice, bueno, eso hubiese vendido muchísimo, porque esa rivalidad fue la que llenó las arenas de la NWA por mucho tiempo. Pero volviendo a ese tema, ¿estaba el pautado a ganar el campeonato de la mano de Ric Flair, como se dice en los rumores? Bueno, tal vez Dusty tuvo una conversación junto con Jim allá por el otro lado, que lo hablaron, pero nunca se habló nada con Nikita directamente. Por eso es que él desconoce de esa área.